Hi everyone, and welcome to a deck tech video with Rograkh, son of Rograkh, and thrasios Triton hero. And here we have with us Tangelo, the deck constructor for this Polymorph tidespout tyrant. I really enjoy calling it tidespout tyrant. I'm a Pokemon.
Yeah. Speaking of nicknames, I think my favorite nickname for the tidespout is lovingly referred to on the Urza Discord as the bouncy boy.
Yeah, that is.
He does all the bouncing. It's very big fan of that nickname. But hi, I'm Tangelo. Speaking of Urza, I'm an Urza main. You probably saw me on my Urza deck tech, the budget video. I've been very interested in Polymorph in general as a strategy and just sort of exploring how to make that a deck outside of just the mono blue Urza strategy. And so with the printing of Rograkh, I think that it's really been turned into a reality, and I'm super excited to share this with you guys.
Could you explain why Rograkh is giving something to the strategy, actually?
So when you look back at Urza, what Urza provided was a free polymorph target to get the tidespout tyrant out. And Rograkh actually provides something similar to that. At any point, you could cast Rograkh and have a target for your polymorph spells to target and go find the tidespout tyrant.
And you have a bunch. You have, let's go over all of them. You have Polymorph, the original run. Reality Scramble, that is pretty cute.
That's probably one of the better ones, yeah.
Yeah, because you can recast it if it's counterspelled, right?
The retrace is super good on it, exactly, yeah.
Then Transmogrify, I hope I pronounced that one correct. And then you have the instant speed one, which is my favorite one, the Divergent Transformation.
Yes. I can't really choose between the best two. It's either Reality Scramble or Divergent, because Divergent's instant speed and it can target an opponent's piece to remove something super fantastic.
And then the last one is Proteus Staff, which is probably the most expensive one, right? 6 mana.
It's slow, but it has a lot of utility if the combo fails.
And then the last one, which is really cool, Oath of Druids. And all of these cards are basically going to transform the Rograkh into tidespout Pokemon Tyrant.
Sprouting out of the corpse of Rograkh.
What happens then?
Okay, so once you have the tidespout tyrant on the fields, we've constructed the deck in a way, or I've constructed it with some help with some other people, obviously. With your artifacts are all super low to the ground. I shouldn't say all, mostly low to the ground. Once you've assembled 2 permanents on the battlefields that can produce more mana that they cost to cast, then what you can do is you can cast one of those permanents, bouncing the other one, tap one of them for mana, casting the other one. And so you kind of bounce between them, and in between casts, you're tapping one of them or both of them for mana, generating infinite mana, which can then be poured into Thrasios for various ways of winning the game.
And here is something I kind of like. Rograkh has a CMC 0, so if you recast it for 2 mana after finding Tidespout, you can bounce Mox Amber and Rograkh and win from that, right?
Mm-hmm, exactly.
What happens after you've drawn your entire deck with Thrasios?
So you have several ways of winning from there. The easiest, I suppose, since you're already generating infinite storm, casting and recasting all these permanents, is just Brain Freeze. But if for some reason you don't have access to Brain Freeze, or if you want a more assured way to victory, you can we also have Time Twister and Narcissus Reversal to assemble Time Twister loops, where you cast Time Twister and Narcissus Reversal the Time Twister, sending the Time Twister back to your hand to get shuffled back into your library. What this does is allows you to cast any spell out of your deck infinite number of times. From there, with these infinite spell casts, you're going to be bouncing all of your opponent's permanents with the Tidespout Tyrant. You have a Narset Parter of Veils that every time you repeat this combo, you're going to be wheeling away, making sure you have 0 cards in hand. We also have a Swan Song to do the Swan Song loop, where we counter one of our own spells to create infinite swans and then pass the turn and then swing out next turn with infinite birds.
That will do it. You also have a Noxus Revival to do the Twister loops, actually.
That's right. The Memory's Journey also functions the same way.
Oh, yeah. So I really like Oath of Druids. How has Oath of Druids been performing so far for you in this deck?
So I actually wasn't running it for a good portion of my playtesting. I've only very recently added it, but I've loved it so far. Basically, the way this card reads is for each player, at the beginning of your upkeep, if you are not the player with the most number of creatures, you get to reveal off the top until you hit a creature. And then all those revealed cards go to your graveyard. There are several reasons why this is great. First off, if you get this out early enough, what it turns into is a stacks piece, which basically means if any of your opponents plays a creature, you get to win the game on your upkeep. Well, not on your upkeep exactly, but you get a tidespout tyrant on your upkeep, which is going to win you the game. Additionally, all those cards that are revealed get put in your graveyard, and since we are also running Underworld Breach, and those loops with Underworld Breach really helps fuel that combo as well. It's a plan A strategy that helps fuel our backup plan.
And this is why Memory's Journey is key in this deck, because if you actually use Oath of Druids to get Tidespout Tyrant in play and it gets killed in some various ways, which could happen, you will then use Oath of Druids to put your entire deck into your grave, and then I guess you're using Memory's Journey to return Underworld Breach to the top of your library before you deck yourself, and you draw that and you cast Breach.
That's right.
Have you ever felt that you're fizzled? Like you get your Tidespout Tyrant in play and you aren't able to do the artifact loop that it requires to get the infinite mana?
So I think it's relatively consistent in getting the artifacts you need out, but there have been situations in which I have to wait and sort of build up those artifacts. That happens enough times to be part of your game plan building those. But I think the bigger issue, I guess, the deck has is how many points of interaction the combo actually has. Once you actually do assemble the artifacts, the polymorph, and are ready to actually go off, the combo suffers from, like I said, a lot of points of interaction. There are most types of interaction outside of stacks, and I'll explain why stacks doesn't do nearly anything to this deck. Most types of interaction can potentially stop this combo.
Basically, spot removal counterspells will do the job. Yeah, because you can actually destroy artifacts to deal with this too.
Exactly, right. So if I only have one mana positive artifact, if I try returning it to my hand with Tidespout Tyrant, someone can just respond and Assassin's Trophy it, and then I'm stuck. So part of resolving this combo is knowing those weaknesses and trying to find your opportunity to win and go for it then.
Most of your spells like Divergent, Polymorph, Jeska's Will is also a pretty nice spell here, are all instants and sorcerers. Have you considered Bosei, who shelters all? That will help you get through counter spells here, as you all only need one spell to resolve here actually.
It's in my paper list. I don't think I have it online. Oops. Yeah, here it is.
Okay.
It should be on the online list. I should update it.
Okay. You get Thrasios to go for grindy games when this simply doesn't happen, and you get Temur color identities here. That feels quite nice. It's more colored than Urza mono blue.
That's, I think, the biggest difference I have between Urza and this deck. Having the different colors gives us many better ways for card advantage than Urza has. Despite what a lot of people think, even though Urza's blue, he doesn't have very many ways to actually draw cards and fill his hand. And so Urza actually suffers a lot when you don't have a really good opening hand to start with. And I think having access to Thrasios, because Thrasios' activation is way better than Urza's activation.
Oh, yes.
Getting free spells seems nice, but when all of your spells in your deck are super low to the ground, like most decks are in cEDH, it's just not very good. So having Temur colors to have better card advantage engines like your Sylvan Library, Jeska's Will, I would consider a really good card advantage spell in general.
You are playing Grim Monolith, obviously, because it's a ritual for your combo. But have you considered Power Artifact for this deck?
No. A situational 2-card combo is worth running when I have a high enough density, this high of a density of 1-card combos.
That is true. I mean, all you really need is just one of these polymorph spells, and you have the win, kinda.
Exactly. If you notice, I'm actually not even running the Dramatic Reversal Icecrown Scepter combo. I know a couple people playing another version of this deck that are on that, but again, I don't seem to find it necessary as a backup plan.
Your backup plan is basically just find another polymorph spell.
It's either find another polymorph spell, but if Tidespout Tyrant gets lost somehow, it's in graveyard, gets exiled, I can still go to the Underworld Breach combo.
Or do this.
Exactly, yeah.
I kind of agree. I mean, you don't need too many combos in your deck. You already have Underworld Breach, and then just fill your deck with counter spells that's going to protect you, make sure you win the game, because you are a fast combo deck basically here.
I've played about a little over 30 games with this deck so far, and only one time have I found that I didn't have a combo in the deck that I could go for. It was a strange situation where both Brain Freeze and the Tidespout Tyrant both got exiled.
I mean, your deck contains a lot of just overall good cards. It's very hard to find bad dead cards here. Like Springleaf Drum is actually great with Rograkh. You have some Arcane Signets, Intuition, Force of Will, Flusterstorm, Dispel, Deflecting Sword, Chain of Vapor. It's just pure, decent overall functional interaction. Wheels. Then you have some value card, Mystic Remora, Rhystic Studies, Sylvan Library. You don't play Wild Growth. You should play Wild Growth here, I think.
I should probably play Wild Growth. It's I'm having trouble finding what to cut. There's just such a high density of good cards in the deck.
I can definitely understand that. Maybe you could cut a land.
I could probably cut a land for that. Yeah, you're probably right. Speaking of lands, another card I've been wanting to try to fit in the deck is Tabernacle, because generally I'm not going to have very many creatures on the field.
Yes. We like this. I believe this combo with Tidespout, Tyrant, Pokemon, Genie, Monk, you're quite good versus Stacks decks.
Right. So you would think that Stacks would stop this. There's a lot of steps that this deck goes through. An artifact, like a collector oof, should stop it. It stops me from being able to tap my artifacts between them. What the Tidespout actually does is gives me a way to just remove Stacks before I go. As long as I have spells in hand to cast while the Tidespout Tyrant is on the field, I can start bouncing Stacks pieces back to their owner's hand. I can bounce the collector oof.
What is this deck's weakness? Or is it just an overall deck in general?
The deck's weakness, like I said, rule of law effects are a big part, a big weakness that the deck struggles against.
Mm-hmm.
It's, like I said, when you're going for the combo, it struggles against most forms of interaction. The biggest things that should be going on inside your head while piloting this deck is keeping track of your opponent's card advantage, how many cards they have in hand, and if they've revealed any information, if they have any sort of interaction. It's super easy to assemble your combo in this deck, so your main game plan should be focused around finding the opportunity to actually fire off that game plan rather than assembling it, because the assembling will happen naturally with the game.
What do you think about training grounds for this deck? Is it unnecessary?
It's on the considering list. I thought it might not be necessary at first, but it's a card that I want to test eventually, because I've been finding myself in those grinding games more and more often and not being able to keep up, and that might be one of those cards that helps do that.
It's not expensive, and I mean, you're gonna have thrasios. Like, getting thrasios in play is fairly easy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think the strength of this deck is straight up that you're such a high consistent combo that you only need one of your polymorph cards that you have a lot of variations of, and just 4 mana, and you can win if you have the artifact setup. I think that's a huge power to this deck, and something to be like really cautious of. Like, you have to have some counter spells at the ready, just because you go through Stacks pieces with this quite easy.
It's definitely a deck you have to respect.
Some people might look at this deck and immediately say that red and green is obviously lacking black, tutors. But something you've mentioned here is that you only need to draw cards, and you're gonna get there because of the high velocity of combos. Do you feel that you need tutors, or?
Right, so with this card of velocity and being able to draw so many cards, a lot of cards are going to end up in your graveyard. Not only is drawing a lot of cards going to get you to find your plan A, your polymorph effects, as well as assemble your mana positive artifacts, you're also just going to fill your graveyard to be ready for your plan B if you end up drawing it, which is Underworld Breach.
Tangelo, thank you for coming here and sharing your deck. I really like this deck. It's a pretty awesome thing. Rograkh, Thrasios, Temur, Polymorph.
I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I think you will too. I'm looking forward to seeing more versions of this.
Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and you wanna support me, feel free to share my videos or even checking out my Patreon page. Also, purchasing cards from the TCG Players website using the affiliate link in the description below of the video will also help the channel grow. So a big thank you to all of you.